Okay. Now, I have been thinking about this topic, how being a Quaker shapes my life. I hope that's what is meant by the kind of thing we're supposed to speak about here. But anyway, I want to say that being a Quaker, now what the heck is that? Like being? Being. Well, how do we do that? Primarily, my life, since I've joined Quakers 20 over years ago, has been shaped by regular attendance and meeting for worship. When I first started attending meeting for worship, I'd just taken a position as warden, and I wanted to get right into it. And so the first year, out of 52 meetings, I attended 50. The second year, I also attended 50. The third year was down to 48. The fourth year was back to 50. I worked out recently that over the last 26 years, 24 years, I think it is it that long? I've attended over 750 meetings. Now, the reason I want to mention that is because one thing I've realized about the spiritual life is it's all about time and grade. It's all about the effort we put in, the attention and the effort we make to it, right? Primarily, my life has been shaped by regular attendance at meeting for worship. My purpose rapidly became a desire, an earnest desire to follow the will of God in my life. Because I had realized that if I did anything else, I wasn't happy. But I didn't actually know how to follow the will of God. I didn't even know what God was. I could talk about the will of God, but had no idea. Not really, when I look back. And that's the only way one can judge one's progress, it seems to me, is by looking back, because nothing seems to happen day to day, unless the occasional mini miracle happens, but they're kind of rare. Well, they're not impossible, but they're fairly rare. Now, in this expectant waiting on God in meeting, right, with any concern I have forward in my mind, right, and waiting on this divine presence, in proportion to the intensity of my longing and desire for solution, there will be some answer. May not come right then, may not come for a day or two, but it will come. All my life, I've been aware of the existence of God theoretically, but it has been among Quakers that I've experienced God most profoundly. And yes, it's a real experience with a feeling of self-evident truth. The effect on me is one of lightness, of joy even, sometimes even of ecstasy. This shapes my life in every way, as it appears that everything in life is spiritual or sacred, and even small, apparently insignificant actions become full of meaning. I feel better and happier after meeting, or on my way to meeting, thinking of the possibilities that God will place within me. So perhaps I find myself giving money to buskers and street musicians, donating to charities, smiling at strangers, helping people in little ways. I remember particularly an incident where a fragile, older woman got off the bus in front of me, and it was blowing a gale, and walking was difficult and almost dangerous. I found myself with my arm around her, guiding her to her home, seeing her safe. Joyful things happen. I have not been moved to great causes of social or political action. I've never been on vigil. God has never led me in that direction, but I have been led to help the sick and the sad on numerous occasions. Life has become an unfolding and exciting mystery. It is uncertain how the divine will inspire me, but it is the openness to different experiences in the world that is apparently a direct cause of the openness we practice in meeting for worship while waiting on God's revelation. Be open to new light wherever it comes from, say the advices. I must say, though, it took some years before the sheer simplicity of the experience of Quaker worship took hold. At first, the practice seemed almost absurd, as nobody said anything in that meeting where I was the warden. Nobody said anything for at least 50% of the meetings. Sometimes not even an advices and queries was read. And it seemed almost pointless to be there doing nothing and saying nothing. However, it was the example of the other friends who I liked and respected, showed by their dedication that it would be worth it. And indeed, it has been today. And there's one more thing I just want to say, because I've probably way run over my minutes, but there's one more thing I want to say, is that it's an old truism, and I heard it shortly after I joined Quakers, but I remember a much respected friend said, Quakers, it's an old saying, Quakers are like cats, right? You see, we are lights unto ourselves like cats. We are self-declared, self-referent lights. So we're fully responsible because we declare our own light. We're totally responsible, right? That's what we are. Beings who are awake to our responsibilities as humans. That's what I think.
I like to listen to Radio 4. On Sunday, there is a religious service, nearly always with a priest or vicar, sometimes several, who act as intermediates between the congregation and God. When this is established, then they can turn to greet each other as fellow supplicants. They can approach God on their own in private prayer and meditation, but this is not a group activity unless they have a leader who has the authority which a priest or vicar has. Do not misunderstand me. There is nothing wrong with this system of belief. Several Quakers I know sample some form of church service occasionally, valuing the certainty, lack of responsibility, the teaching from the Bible, the music, the ceremony, or just because it is a long way to meeting and the church is nearby. However, the essence of George Fox's revelation was that we can have a direct experience of Christ without the need of a specially qualified and holy intermediary. This might have been particularly welcome in those times when parts of the established church had a bad reputation for exploiting the poor. These days, however, society is very different. Few people still believe that God intervenes directly in world affairs or our personal troubles, although sometimes we wish that she did. Instead, people have many personal belief systems or none at all. They mostly depend on friends for support or professional agencies. Quakers, however, have retained the direct experience of God or the divine, or however you name or don't name, the sense of whatever unifies everything. We also have a strong structure which prevents us from going off on wild and dangerous fantasies. Together we wait for guidance, referring to historical Quaker texts which have stood the test of time, but which are revised when they seem out of step with current experience. It is a ponderous system, but it works, and meanwhile there is the gathering together in local meetings, supporting each other, loving and knowing each other in the things that are eternal. That is why I am a Quaker. If you join us, newcomers are gently welcomed.
I'm Margaret, and I was drawn to Quakers initially by the Quaker peace testimony. I really didn't know a lot else about Quakers other than they believed in not killing people. And in spite of the fact that a lot of people around me growing up felt very differently, I've always felt passionately about not killing people and not having wars. I think another experience that I've had that really attracted me was when a Quaker was talking about prayer, and prayer being searching inside for the inner light, the light that comes from God, rather than there being a God that's outside and that fixes things. Because I never did get why people needed to tell God what he needed to do, what he or she needed to do. I never got that. It seemed a complete mystery to me. And then I gave it a try, and I felt at home right from the beginning. There was no creed that I had to sign up to. And I've always been a bit of a questioner, you know, why do we believe that? And so not having a creed really freed me up. And all I can say is that I've always felt at home in the silence. That really feels the right place for me, and it recharges my batteries. I think that's a very important part for me of supporting me with living life as a Quaker, opening up my heart to listen, and knowing that I'm not there to do the talking, I'm there to listen. I've been particularly inspired by all the Quaker testimonies, and I was challenged in this when I read, and I think I'd been coming a while, but I read that if you're not living your testimonies deep down inside you, you don't really believe them. You have to be living them to really be believing them. And I think for me, this is a lifelong journey. I'm never going to get it right, but I found quite a lot of joy, in fact, to my surprise, because I'd seen it as quite an onerous task, really. Found quite a lot of joy in seeing everything through the lens of Quaker testimonies. So, for example, this week I just happened to see a TED talk on the psychology of equality and inequality. I'm interested in psychology, and I thought, oh, you know, and I really learned a lot from that. It's a sort of exciting exploration. There's another kind of experience that I have, and I guess I oscillate in this between excitement and feeling a bit like Job. You know, Job was asked to do something by God, and he ran away. And I can really identify with Job. I like him. So an example of that would be our friend Linda gave me this piece of paper just over a year ago now and said, you're interested in simplicity and sustainability. This might be of interest to you. And I went away and had a think about it. And I thought, it involves applying to friend's house to be one of a number of pilots. And I thought, well, I'll give it my best shot, but oh, it'll be such a relief if I'm not one. And lo and behold, we were one of the ones selected. And then I thought, well, I'll give it my best shot, but other people could do this a lot better. And, you know, it'll fall by the wayside, nothing will happen. And to my amazement, it is. And, you know, it feels like this isn't something I've entirely chosen to do. And sometimes I think in my right mind, I would have just said no to God. But it's sort of what I feel is part of living life as a Quaker. You just have to do some things. You just do.